Spin bowling is a bowling technique in cricket in which the ball is delivered slowly for it to deviate sharply after the bounce. Now the ball could deviate to the left or right depending on what the bowler has in mind. Now why am I telling you this? It's because it's the birthday of Indian superstar Yuzvendra Chahal. Today we wish him a fabulous birthday and a great year ahead. You can see him playing chess against some of his RCB teammates here. Also there is a picture of him playing chess at the age of 10 where he represented India in the World Youth Chess Championship. I have covered some of his tactical shots before on the channel. In this video, I am going to cover some of the games where the spin effect is very much relevant. So here I have his first position in which he is black. He is a pawn up, and one thing to remember when you are a pawn up, when you are ahead in material, is to try and exchange pieces. And Yuzi does it very well. Here he plays knight d4, attacking the queen and the bishop, and then once the queen moves, he takes the bishop, and then he keeps the thread going with knight d5 because he gets to exchange more pieces. White queen cannot take the pawn on e4. I'm giving you a minute to figure out. I'm just giving you a moment actually. So the white queen cannot take the pawn on e4 because the g5 will hang. You can see that the queen has to defend the g5 knight as well as a move. So queen g3 is necessary here. But in this position, his opponent just blundered his queen with knight e4, and Yuzi just took up the queen and won the game. Next position, we have Yuzi playing black against 1700 player, and in this position after knight g2, it is black to move. So take your time to see what you would do as black. I think exercises like this where the theme is not clear are a good way to train your chess, because during the game also there will be nobody to tell you what theme it is. In this position, black has to play a very aggressive move with queen f2. If the queen's direction, the rook comes to the 7th rank, and we know that the rook on the 7th rank is like heaven for the rook. So in this position after queen f2, his opponent played rook d1, and after knight takes a3, queen takes f2, rook takes f2. In this position, his opponent played bishop e1, and Yuzi just took the pawn on c2, and after king g3, he played knight to c4. Now it feels like the pawn on e3 will be attacked. He plays bishop f2 to support it, and now Yuzi is telling his opponent, hey, my ball is coming straight, I want to capture the pawn on b4. But the threat is actually not just that. There is a googly threat here after bishop e1. I hope that you will find the other threat that Yuzi had here, and the threat is a rook takes g2. And if king takes g2, knight takes e3 picks up the rook. So that's the whole idea. So that way he won the piece and the game. His opponent resigned there. Next we have Yuzi versus Sigurdsson, where Yuzi was white and his opponent is 1700. And one interesting fact about Yuzvendra Chahal is that he loves to play this stonewall setup with the white side. So I'm coming to the critical position after queen g5, after bishop into e4, fe4. Take a moment to see what you would do as white. Again, I really like the way Yuzi played in this position. When you are in a situation like this, when it's almost middle game, it's important to see which direction your game could go, whether to play on the queen side or on the king side. And here, Yuzvendra Chahal has realized that his chances lie on the king side because black is underdeveloped. So he plays rook takes f8 check, and then he develops his bishop with a tempo, and then immediately threatens queen e2 and rook f1. So now he's already having an idea in mind, and that is to play queen f2. For a moment it seems like queen f7 is a threat, but there is an additional threat, which is queen f8. And his opponent failed to spot it. His opponent played queen g6, and he played queen f8 and won the game. The rook takes f8 is met by rook takes f8, and white is winning. Next, again a very nice position. I really like the move played by Yuzvendra Chahal here. It's not so easy for a beginner to spot this, but it requires some experience here to understand why that move is very good. You can see that 3 pieces, this is called the Alekhine's gun. All the 3 pieces are lined up, and f7 is also protected by 3 pieces. You can see the black queen is protecting f7, rook is protecting f7, and the king is protecting f7. So in such a cases, we need to push at least one piece away, and Yuzi found a very nice idea. He played pawn to a3 in this position. The idea is to put the bishop to b4, push the queen away, and if the queen moves, the rook will be hanging, and then that way he gets to eliminate a rook and at least win an exchange. So his opponent played rook b8, and Yuzi went with bishop b4, and thus he won the exchange. Plus the queen came to b4 just to pick up the pawn, which meant the end of the game for black because there is rook takes f7, and the game was over in a few moves. Next we have another position where I again want to show you how Yuzi built up the attack. So starting from here, you can see that black doesn't have any pieces in front of his pawns. So that can already be considered as a weakness, and so he plays queen g4. Idea is bishop into h6, so his the black king moved, and then after that he plays bishop e3 because the rook on a1 also has to join the game. So after b5, what is the technique here? The technique is to double the rooks. He goes for rook f3 and then rook a f1. So two pieces have already come to the game here. And after rook d7, he realizes that the g7 point is the weak spot because the knight or the queen cannot immediately come to support g7. So he goes rook g3. And after rook g8, I am giving you a moment to figure out what he would do as white. Okay, so here comes the tactical shot. So the threat of rook g3 is not just queen g7. There was also another threat, and that was bishop into h6. So here you see the spin effect, that the ball could go to the right or left, and the opponent only sees one angle. Then there's other angles here where white gets a pawn. And it's not just that, the pawn is a cover of the king, and that cover is blown off. Now g8 is met by queen g8. If king takes h6, there is rook h3 mate, so g6 happened, and in a matter of few moves, Yuzi went on to win the game. Next we have another game. His opponent has just played rook b8. His opponent's rating is around 1750. And now, if you want to complete the development as white, you need to bring these pieces out. So, good moment again for you to think. And congratulations if you found the move b3, which is the best move and top choice of engine as well. The point is that this bishop has very limited scope here. So, this bishop has to be developed with b3. It could come to a3 or b2 depending on the situation. And after queen c8, c4, c5, Yuzi puts the bishop on a3, a very useful spot for the bishop now, and it's already keeping an eye on the rook on f8 indirectly. And here after cd4, ed4, rook e8, he played rook f2, and now the a1 rook comes to the game with f1. Of course, he could have also taken the rook on the previous turn. And then after rook b7, again he piles the pressure on the f7. And now he realizes that this is supported by the rook and king. So he finds a way to move this rook away. So he plays c5 and then c6. And the rook has to leave the duty of protecting the second rank, and white won the game here. Next, we have another position in which Yuzi played queen f5, and actually he has two threats, and his opponent only defended against one. So try to find out what those two threats are. It's based on the fact that the black rook is hanging. So the threat is queen g6 and queen h5, but his opponent only played king f7 and only covered the g6 square, so queen h5 picked up. Yuzi picked up the rook with queen h5. Next, again a very interesting position. After queen d3, he played queen d3 attacking the rook. Okay. Now after rook fc8, I will reveal the move, and I want you to figure out the idea. He played queen d2. So take a moment to understand why Yuzi played queen d2. Also, it's a great exercise for you to do this on a regular basis. Look at the games of, let's say, players like Vidit, Anand, Harikrishna, Nihal. Go through their games and try to understand why a particular move has been played. It's worth your time. Coming back to this position, his opponent played queen to c7, and I hope the threat is clear. He played queen d2 to open the eyes of this bishop, and now bishop into f5 is a very nice move because the pawn on e6 can only defend one, that is the knight, and if it captures the bishop, the d5 hangs. So that was the whole point. Here his opponent played queen takes e5, and after rook b1, Yuzi's opponent resigned. Because now after the queen moves, bishop into e6 also wins the rook on c8. Now coming to the last position, I really like the image, so I just kept this in the collection. It's white to move and checkmate in one, pretty easy. Knight to f4 and it's game over. So those were the positions that I had picked from the games of Yuzi, where the positions or the moves that Yuzi played were not just tactics but also had some threats and some strategic aims in the game, where he saw where he could attack and so on. I'm very happy that I was able to collect all the games and show you all, and with that we wish Yuzi a great year ahead. And dear viewers, I hope you liked the video. Do drop your wishes in the comments below. We'll be back with some more videos. Until then, take care. Bye bye.